Hi, everybody. You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. Hi, everybody. Today, if you grew up like me, Christian, Catholic, we got a new pope. So that's kind of exciting for me. I don't know if everybody agrees with that, but I do. I think the more we can get somebody that's interested in helping the poor and accepting people of all different backgrounds into the world, I'm all for it. So I was definitely, so far, I'm happy with the choice. If you listen to the podcast, you kind of know where I stand with accepting people of all different backgrounds, race, religion, sexuality. That's where I stand. So me personally, I'm happy with this. We'll see how it goes. The other thing I was going to say is thank you so much to all my listeners. I really appreciate, I think I'm sitting at number 10 on the Apple charts right now for mental health. And honestly, I couldn't have done any of this over the past 5 years without all of your support and reaching out and listening. And I just really, truly appreciate it. So wanted to say thank you.
We've all been put here for a reason, and we all deserve acceptance.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.
I'm a trauma survivor from a really young age, and I have been diagnosed with complex PTSD in the past few years. I've been surrounded by death and abuse much of my life. I've been dragged through the mud and have been to the point of not wanting to go on anymore. Through my interviews with other survivors, I've learned that there is a way out. From recovering to surviving and thriving, we all have the strength to come out the other side.
You are listening to Judging Meghan.
I'm going to introduce my guest right now, and she caught my eye because not only do I think she's just gorge, I saw her Instagram and I'm following her, but I love that she's young and she's talking about mental health. She also told me before we started recording that she has written 22 books. So very young, knows what she's doing. She's a journalist, she's an influencer, and she's an author. Carrie Berk, welcome to the podcast. So nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you. I'm excited to chat.
I know. Okay, so let's start here. All my listeners know I always start with the same question. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and kind of why you got to where we are today.
So I grew up in Manhattan. I'm a New York girl through and through, and I've been writing ever since I was 8 years old. I got my start writing children's books, and as I've grown older, I've really come into my own as a writer. So I released my solo debut book in 2023 called My Real Life Rom-Com. It was a Barnes & Noble bestseller, #1 in Amazon's dating and intimacy category, and it was basically like a Gen Z Sex in the City. So kind of filling that gap for Gen Z and millennials that, they didn't really get growing up for Sex in the City. And I was named after Carrie Bradshaw, so super appropriate.
Yeah, who doesn't love Sex in the City? It was, I'm an old lady, but that was, for anybody my age, that was like I don't remember what night it was on, but everyone was in front of the TV. So your mom must be a huge fan, like all of us were, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, writing that, you're young, tell me a little bit about what that pressure must be like. You must have had a lot of pressure on that you put on yourself to turn over so many books, and hence like kind of where we are today, correct?
I was just doing what I loved. I feel like it's something I'm so passionate about that it almost felt like an escape from like everyday education and being in school and studying for tests. I feel like more of my pressure was focused on just the everyday of being a human, being like a teenager. So the book stuff was really just an escape for me. It felt freeing to be able to express myself creatively. And especially now with my mental health book, it feels especially rewarding to be able to open up on the pages of a book.
What got you into writing? Like, you must have been really little. I was like you, I was creative from a really young age. I used to act and sing and all of that stuff. It was also my outlet. So tell me, like, did you go to your parents at a young age and say, I want to start writing? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my mom is a writer. She's a celebrity ghostwriter, and I grew up watching her type away at her computer every day and just felt super inspired by her. So when I started learning about writing in school, naturally I fell in love with it, and I'm really lucky I had such a great mentor growing up to teach me her ways, show me the right books to read, and just inspire me to find my own voice in writing.
What was that like growing up in New York? I'm an LA girl, but I lived in New York very briefly. It's very fast paced. I would assume there was a lot of pressure on you to be like living in the city. Your mom was a successful writer. Is that kind of where you started feeling the anxiety from a young age? Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
I mean, it was everything I knew living in New York. I loved it. I loved the fast-paced nature of it. I've always been such a go, go, go kind of girl, trying to get things done ahead of time or on time. So I absolutely loved it. I love California too, though, and I hope to end up there someday just because of the beach and the weather, and it's just like a dream of mine. But I did
Carrie, let me talk over you. You have a place I live at the beach, so you can visit us anytime. You have an open invitation. I live in Manhattan Beach. So
I love Manhattan Beach.
Open invitation to visit me. Go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I go out to LA a lot, actually. I have a lot of friends out there. My boyfriend's family's there, so we usually have a place to stay. But I love it, and it's like a pipe dream of mine to live there, eventually raise a family there. Just because I feel like there's so much more space. It would be great. But in terms of the anxiety stuff, it didn't really manifest until my teenage years. I feel like when I was 8 years old, I was showing OCD symptoms, actually. So it was like the cookie cutter OCD you hear about. Everything had to be even on both sides. If I touched something with my right hand, I'd have to touch it with my left hand. And that lasted for about a year until it kind of faded. I pulled myself out of it. And didn't really manifest until I was 18. It was the middle of the pandemic. I didn't have a prom or a graduation, and I was really struggling. And one day I just had a panic attack unexpectedly. I thought it was COVID because I couldn't catch my breath. I didn't understand what it was. And turns out it was just anxiety. And that was a concept I was entirely unfamiliar with at the time, and started off purely as these physical symptoms until one day I was out with a friend and she told me that she also had anxiety, but it led her to the point where she'd actually self-harmed. And then she showed me the cut marks on her wrists. And in that moment, I felt really triggered, and my brain almost made this false association that if I had anxiety and she had anxiety, that I was destined to end up like her. And I latched on to that thought, that intrusive thought that I was going to hurt myself because that's what people with anxiety did. And turns out that was my OCD. I officially got diagnosed when I was 18 and started to learn that the OCD we see in the media, the organization, the cleanliness, isn't at all the reality of what it's like for a lot of people. It can be really intense mental rumination. It can cause these anxious symptoms like the sweaty palms, the shaky hands, the shortness of breath. And it all really started to fall in place during that time in my life.
I can't imagine what my heart goes out to. I had a kindergartner and probably like a 10-year-old, I think Sophie was at the time during COVID. But I have always thought about kids that were missing their proms or missing their senior year of high school and what it does to you guys down the line and how hard it is, so it kind of makes sense that all of that stuff would kind of bubble up to the surface. I also struggle with horrible panic attacks. And for a long time, my listeners know my panic attacks are kind of they come on, they feel like, I say this all the time, they come on, they're kind of like a refrigerator, like a electronic, old time equipment kind of goes, bah, 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 and then it goes, bah, 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 and everything shuts down. Yeah. And I just couldn't catch my breath. And I always had mine at night where I thought I was dying. And it's such a scary, scary feeling for somebody that struggles with this. But my question to you is, when you had that, and sounds like everything was just bubbling up to the surface. Did you kind of feel like when you got the diagnosis, it all pieced together and made sense and kind of gave you kind of clarity and peace of mind?
It did eventually. At first, no. And I almost didn't believe my therapist and my diagnosist because, like I said, OCD as we see it in the media is not that. It's not having intrusive thoughts about things that are really taboo. Of course, now I know that's the reality of it for a lot of people out there. But at the time, that wasn't what I knew. And I didn't believe it. I would question my therapist about it and ask her, how do you know these thoughts aren't true? Why are they intrusive thoughts? Why are they OCD? And I had to learn over time to stop questioning it. OCD is called the doubting disorder for a reason. Like, we question it and try to find certainty when a lot of the times we don't know things for certain, and we just kind of have to live with that feeling of maybe and allow those garbage thoughts to pass. So I also learned from my therapist that I think really helped me. These intrusive thoughts we get are contrary to who we are and what we value. So during the pandemic, at a time when so many people were dying, I valued my life above everything else. So of course, that's what my mental health, my brain was spewing at me, these intrusive thoughts about death and self-harm, because it was the complete opposite to everything I valued. But to go back to your question, it took time. I think my turning point was realizing that thoughts are supposed to flow freely. Not every thought that pops into your mind holds truth. We can think to ourselves, the sky is purple, and it doesn't mean it's true. And realizing that there's no finish line with anxiety, there's no cure. I think those two things are what really set me free.
So what have been kind of like your directions of therapy? Did you stick to like talk therapy, and are you comfortable talking about like medication? Like, what were the avenues that you took with your therapist?
So a combination of like cognitive behavioral therapy and medication, like SSRIs. And at the time when the intrusive thoughts were really bad, doing exposure therapy, which for people who don't know, basically you take the intrusive thought, which can be anything. So for me, it was that self-harm thought. For other people, it could be related to driving. It could be related to like postpartum OCD. It could be related to your relationships, like literally anything, the craziest, most taboo things you could think of. So for exposure therapy, you take that thought and you unpack it and you expose yourself to the thought. So do the opposite end of the spectrum of what you eventually want to do, which is just letting it flow freely. Like, you provide so much attention to it and overexpose yourself to it. So for me, my set of exposures was looking at a photo of a razor, like closing my eyes and playing out the scene in my head, like writing the word like self-harm over and over again, like making myself so uncomfortable to the point where I eventually became desensitized to it, which is the goal in exposure therapy.
Okay, that exposure therapy is brand new to me. I have not done an episode in all these years talking about that, so I love hearing about it. But also some of the, like, I haven't really done episodes about OCD. So to be able to figure out, like, when you started taking, like, going the route of medication and exposure therapy and all the different therapies that you did, how long did you start to see kind of an improvement?
Well, I think for anyone starting on medication, first off, it's like a curve.
Yeah,
right? Like
for sure.
First, it's really hard getting on medication to kind of mellow out.
Yeah.
I'm actually stepping down on my medication right now, and it's the same thing. Like, it's really hard when you make any sort of adjustment on your medication. So yeah, it took a while. I think I did the exposures for like 3 months, and it was just really difficult at the time because you're taking like your deepest, darkest fears and putting them right in front of you and like allowing it to consume you. So that was really tough. But I think I reached a point where I was just like angry that I was still having these thoughts I didn't align with. And I was just like sick of it, to be honest. And that's how it like went away one day. Like, I was so sick of spending so much time on it, and I just wanted my life back, that almost getting angry at it is part of the reason why I pushed it away. Well,
for somebody personally, I've struggled with, anxiety and all of this kind of stuff, but I was diagnosed with complex PTSD around the same time, like 2020. Yeah. And I struggled with horrible suicidal ideations, part of why I started the podcast. it's really hard because everybody's different, like, so you're saying if you're leveling up on medication or you level down, that's a personal decision for my listeners that are listening. For me, I'm not on medication right now, but it doesn't mean I won't go back on medication at some point. But for some of my, listeners that might have, kids that are your age, or I could have younger listeners listening, and they deal with these thoughts of self-harm. Mm-hmm. What are some of the tools and the things that you learn to help you through that?
Well, I think first and foremost, identifying the fact that there's a distinction between genuine suicidal thoughts and intrusive thoughts about suicide. Like one you align with, one you don't. And that's why it's important to go to a doctor or go to a psychiatrist and receive the proper diagnosis, because I never actually wanted to commit suicide. It was something that I feared so deeply to the point where I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I think first and foremost, identifying the difference. If you're genuinely struggling with suicidal thoughts, same idea, go to a doctor, receive the proper diagnosis, and work with your doctor to receive, the proper solution. I would say I can't exactly speak to it fully because it wasn't my experience, but, work with a doctor, realize that there is help out there if you need it. You don't need to suffer in silence, and realizing that it does get better. I feel like hearing that at the time, like when you're going through something so deep, doesn't help, but just trying your best to turn your pain into purpose and putting your attention into something that you're passionate about, I think can help in the moment. But of course, like step one, first and foremost, identify what's going on with a doctor and explore solutions with like an expert, a professional.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about it all the time because the majority of my podcasts are about mental health. But what I would love to know too is, thank you for that. That's super important. But what was it like for your parents and as a family? So like for me, I have a teenage daughter now. Like what do you tell parents that, or kids that might be struggling, how to parent, for somebody like me that could be struggling with a child that's dealing with this kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a two-part answer. So when I was going through exposure therapy, one of my exposures was like sitting at a table with my parents and telling them over and over again, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself, like over and over again, until it just became like a jumble of words that had no meaning. And the reason why that was an exposure is because I felt so afraid to open myself up to my parents and tell them about like this debilitating, intrusive thought. So that was like my intro to telling my parents about it, which was hard all around. But I think we learned as a family that the thoughts had no value, because after that really intense exposure therapy session, life went on. We had dinner, we watched TV, we walked the dog, like life went on and we persevered, and I was fine and they were fine. And that was like a really big learning experience for all of us, and kind of how we all came to terms with my mental health disorder. Now, what I would tell other parents, I think in general, when you're trying to talk to your child about a mental health disorder or like ask them about their anxiety, I would say don't pester them too much. Like allow them to just talk and you listen. And when you're talking to your parent, I think from the other side, keep it as simple as possible at first, because your parent might not fully understand what you're going through at first. Like for me, just opening the floodgates and telling my parents, I'm having these intrusive thoughts about like suicide. Obviously, they're going to freak out.
Yeah.
I think in retrospect, what I would do as the child is tell them in the simplest terms possible, like pretend you're talking to the lowest common denominator. I'm feeling really anxious because XYZ. I'm feeling angry because XYZ. Like start off easy, talking about your emotions, these terms everyone can understand. And then gradually over time, you'll feel more comfortable opening up to them. And on the parent side of things, just listening. Don't try to relate too much. I hate when my mom relates to me, like tells her own stories.
Oh God, you would hate me then if I was your mom. Because I really am trying to understand and asking you, because you seem like you're very smart, by the way, for your age, clearly. But it's hard being a parent. And I'm sure your mom feels the same way, and dad, because we don't know what we're doing. We're just people. And if you haven't had a teenager before, or a kid, are you the youngest or are you the oldest?
I'm the only child.
You're the only child. Okay. So it's kind of a really hard thing because you feel like you're doing the right thing, like you just said, but listening is so huge. And I have such a hard time not telling my daughter, well, when I was your age, I dealt with this, and this, and it must be so irritating. So thank you for pointing that out, because I know it drives her crazy.
Yeah. Like, I understand the parents just want to help. And I think especially now that I'm older, I get that even more. But when I was like going through something so deep, the last thing I wanted to hear was when my mom like fainted in a store and somebody gave her M&Ms because she was having panic attacks. I'm like, that's really hard and I'm so sorry. But like, were you having these intrusive thoughts about like death? I don't think so. Like you're relating to me in this moment, like, isn't productive. All I needed from her was for her to sit and listen and like give me a hug. And sometimes that's all you need. But it's all about listening to your specific child's needs, I think. And if that's doing nothing and sitting and listening, then that's that.
Okay, so let me ask you, Carrie, like this was over years, correct? Because this was like 4 or 5 years ago now. Tell me how you got to the point. So you're working now as a journalist. You're still writing, that you got to the point where you said, you know what? Oh, also, you're an influencer. So for my listeners, we'll tell them at the end where they can follow you in the different platforms. But what made you say, I really want to help kids that might be my age or other people around my age or anybody for that matter that's dealing with this stuff, to write your book called Mindfire? Soft plug. Go ahead.
Yes, Mindfire. So I never wanted to talk publicly about my anxiety and my OCD when I was going through it, because it's so taboo, because I was ashamed, because I was scared that people were going to misunderstand when I told them my story. And a lot of people probably still will, and I acknowledge that. But I was always writing at the time. I'm a writer at heart. It's all I know. So even when I was suffering, I was always journaling and writing in my diary. I just wasn't going to show it to anyone. One day, I think it was 2023, at the beginning of 2023, I had a panic attack in the college classroom and called my mom. She did like the relating thing. It didn't work. I didn't want to message my boyfriend because I didn't want to burden him. I texted my therapist and she said, it was like an SOS moment. And I texted my therapist and she said, if you want to talk, like, please schedule on my website like a time to talk with me this week. So it just felt like she was trying to monetize my anxiety in the moment, when it just felt like an emergency and I just needed her. So it just made it all worse. Like, I felt like nobody saw me or heard me, and I just wanted people to understand and to listen to me. So I took all of my diary entries just in this fury, put them all together. I had about 50 pages, and then this lightning bulb went off, and I said, if I extend this a little bit more, I think this could be something really powerful. Like, this is not only a memoir about my anxiety, but this is a roadmap for other people to learn about their mental health and maybe even empower them to speak out. So I didn't have a job for a year after college. I was doing the influencer stuff as like a side hustle, but I didn't have a full-time job. So all summer, I just wrote this book. It's like 200 pages now, and each chapter is actually dedicated to a different emotion you experience when you're going through your mental health bout. So there's loneliness, restlessness, grief, heartbreak, and I talk about them as they pertain to these important milestones in my life. So whether it's my first heartbreak, losing my grandma, moving into my apartment for the first time, but the reason why I structure the book by emotions is because these emotions are important to everyone. These are universal emotions. Everyone feels lonely. They feel grief. They feel heartbreak. Like, we all feel this at some point in our life. And I knew that I could touch a lot of people if I structured it that way. Which brings me to now. It's coming out in a week. Mindfire.
P.S. Mindfire. Okay. So let me just say something. I love what you said, but I love this point that you brought up.
Yeah.
So many times, because I've been in and out of therapy throughout my life. So many times, and I'm not saying therapists are people, right? Like everyone else, but it is it's a hard feeling of being a human being, and you're at your most vulnerable state. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I need to talk to you now. I'm paying you all this money and I want to schedule because I'm at my breaking point. Mm-hmm. I love that you pointed that out, because I have had a therapist in the past where I was in a really, really bad place. And here I am, like, we all know insurance has its issues. Mm-hmm. and mental health is not covered, and it's a bunch of BS. So is healthcare in general. But I just wished, like, if you're a therapist and you're listening, there was a better way to go about schedule something out, because I have had therapists that don't do that, and they kind of, say it in a way where it's like, okay, I'm going to make time for you, because I think that's such an important piece of what you're trying to say. Right?
Well, everyone classifies like an emergency differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I told her, like, I need to talk to you now, I'm having a panic attack in school, like, that wasn't worthy of like an emergency call off the clock. When I lost my grandma, it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I said, my grandma's going to pass like tonight or tomorrow. Like, I need to talk. That got her to get on the phone. So,
got it. So like, do you think there's something to say, like, because I'm not trying to like badmouth therapists either. I'm just trying to say, is there a way that we could say it where it's like, it is an emergency, like, is something where we could point out to people, or a therapist could say a certain thing. So you didn't always feel like when you're in therapy, like, time's up, like staring at the clock, you know what I'm talking about. It's a really awful feeling, because here you are spilling your guts to them, and then it's like, time's up, and they're looking up at a clock. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
isn't it an awful feeling? It's almost like being on a date or meeting a new best friend, for example, and you're spilling your guts to this person. I just feel like there's ways that could be easier that they could go about things. So I just wanted to point that out for maybe anybody in mental health that might be listening.
Yeah, I think for the emergency situations, like when you're texting them or something.
Yeah.
I think you can say, oh, it's an emergency, as much as you want. But if you really want to go get their attention, you might have to be a little stern with it. Yeah. And tell them, like, if they're like, oh, do you want to schedule a session? Like, you have to say, like, no, I need to talk right now. And like, say like, now, be stern about it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an emergency. Like, can we please talk? Like, I'm at school. Like, I think she assumed, like, I'm surrounded by people. Like, someone was going to, like, save me in that panic attack. Like, I was okay. But looking back, if I said to her, like, no, I'm not okay. I need you right now, I think that would have gotten her attention.
Okay. So and that's not to put your therapist down, but that's like a general thing. So I'm glad you said it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think it's a huge piece of it. The other thing I was going to say to you is thank you, Carrie, because I say this all the time. I'm like you. I put my entire life out on my social media and my podcast. I tell people like more than they probably want to know ever, including talking about what kind of underwear I'm wearing, whatever it is. And they probably don't want to know that. But I think when it comes to the mental health piece, is we have the highest suicide rates of all time, especially for younger people. And it seems to be growing. So by you coming forward and doing what you're doing and having Mindfire come out and talking about this and getting on podcasts, what it does is it makes people, like younger kids, feel like it's okay, because they look at somebody like you, not me, not the old lady doing the podcast, but they look at you and they go,
you too.
No, but I'm being serious. They look at you and they go, well, look at Carrie. Like, she's so beautiful, and she does this and she does that, and she's written all these books, and now she's coming out. And yeah, it is hard because we're people. And so for people that might be listening, I have a bunch of people that do not like me, and this just gives them ammunition to make fun of me, right? But at the end of the day, I don't give a rat's ass, because I'm doing this because I want to help all of those people that really need it. So if you are feeling, I'm telling you this piece of advice, or if you want to take it, do what you will with it. Or for anyone that's listening, share your stories, talk to people, because by you writing your book and you coming on this podcast, or you talking to other kids, or you talking to other young adults, you could potentially be saving somebody else's life.
100%.
Truly.
That's why I do it. I've been talking actually to a lot of sororities on my book tour, because I'm targeting this age demographic as it's the experiences I'm talking about in my book, like moving out, heartbreak, etc. And the amount of people who have like messaged me and been like touched by what I said, I've been so like impressed by their willingness to open up. Like 18-year-old me would not have wanted to open up. Like if I got a presentation by someone, I would have been terrified. But now I see it as such a greater purpose. I'm not trying to like present myself as this hero in the mental health world who's like fully cured, because I'm not. Like I still go through stuff all the time, every day. And yeah, that's just like not the type of person I'm presenting in my book. There are enough stats out there. There are enough doctors, but there aren't enough real people coming out and sharing their mental health stories. I'm just a real girl who's going through it like so many other people out there. And that's what I'm trying to present in this book. I'm not the expert, but I'm an expert on my own life and my own experiences. And I'm hoping that in sharing my experiences that other people can learn something about themselves and hopefully become a little more confident in their mental health.
Well, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think I'm a big fan. I'm old,
get
but
you a book.
I would love a book. We're going to keep in touch, but I want you to share when the book, exact date, where people can get it. Also, share your social media. Please go follow her. I follow her. I think she's cool. I love her. I feel like for the past, like however long we've been talking, I'm like your friend now, even though I'm your old lady friend. So share where people can follow you.
Not an old lady at all. You can follow me on all platforms at Carrie Berk, and my book, Mindfire, Diary of an Anxious 20-something, is available May 13th on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but it's available for pre-order right now. I don't know when this episode's coming out, but
it'll come out. It comes out on Tuesday. I have a quick turnaround. So
Tuesday.
By the time,
that's literally May 13th.
I know, that's why we scheduled it this way.
Oh my God, perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
I did it
the book's out now. Go check it out.
Yeah, here we go. We won't edit that out. Don't worry. Okay. So in closing, before we go, if there's one thing that you could say to yourself during like the hardest time of when you were at like having the panic attack, whatever it was, the very first time you had it, or you were thinking about self-harm or all of these things, if you could go back to that time, what would you say to yourself like 5 years ago?
I think other people said this to me, but I needed to say it to myself. Everything's going to be okay. I don't know if I would have believed it back then, but it's true, and that's what I needed to hear.
It's like a crystal ball if you could go forward and know. Also the heartbreak piece, which we really didn't get into. Yeah. I would love to like piggyback on that. So when I was young, I'm the grandma here, and you're probably like, Meghan, don't share your story. I'm like listening, all the things. I'm not your mom though, so I'm allowed to say it. When I was young, I dated this guy, and I met him probably like around your age, and I really was in love with him. Okay, that's like what I thought was in love at the time, and he dumped me on like New Year's Day, and he had just given me a purse, and I had just moved into like my first brand new, like my first apartment I ever had by myself. I was living, actually, this is funny because I was taking the train into the city, and I was living in Connecticut at the time. And he dumped me, and I got so upset that I threw up, and I was beside myself. And I remember that feeling, and I'll tell my daughter when she moves out, that these guys that you meet, like you're like, whatever, they kill you. But then one day you will look on social media and that same guy will be bald and old.
Exactly.
and I'm married to like the greatest guy ever. So it all kind of has a way of working itself out. So I want to tell you that if I have new youngster listeners, just listen to me. I'm right on that. Carrie, it was so nice to meet you. I think you're awesome, and keep going, and everyone go out and get Mindfire. I can't wait to read it, and I'm going to get it for my daughter.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Love
Carrie.
how we closed on the bald man story.
I know. You're welcome for that. You matter. Your story matters. Keep going, everyone.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.